It began on a stormy night in the quiet coastal town of Ravenshollow, where shadows danced under flickering streetlights and the air thrummed with an unnatural stillness. A sealed envelope, unmarked but for the name Arthur Wakely, appeared on his doorstep as if delivered by an invisible hand. Inside was an invitation, no sender, no explanation, just a simple challenge: enter Ravenscroft Manor. Solve the puzzle, win the truth. But what truth? For Arthur, a man haunted by questions left unanswered after his sister's mysterious disappearance. The lure of this cryptic message was irresistible. What he didn't know was that this game wasn't about escape or survival. It was about sacrifice. Would you dare to step into a world where every decision could cost you everything? Stay with us as we unravel the cryptic puzzle, a tale where riddles become weapons, secrets transform into traps, and the line between player and pawn disappears. Now turning to the man at the heart of this deadly game, Arthur Wakely. A brilliant yet enigmatic figure, Arthur was a man of precision and puzzles. His life had become a series of calculated steps, each one taken in the shadow of a tragedy that left a permanent void. Years ago, his younger sister vanished without a trace, leaving behind nothing but a cryptic set of symbols scribbled in her diary, a mystery that haunted him every waking moment. It was this loss that forged Arthur's obsession with unraveling the impossible, an obsession that made him one of the most gifted cryptographers of his time. But brilliance often comes with a price. Arthur's relentless pursuit of truth turned him into a recluse, isolating him from the world and even himself. He was a man running from his demons, only to find them waiting at every corner. When the invitation arrived at his door on that stormy night, it wasn't just a challenge. It was a whisper of hope, a chance that maybe, just maybe, the answers he had been searching for were within his reach. Yet, as Arthur would soon discover, this was no ordinary puzzle. This was a game designed not to be solved, but to be survived. What truths lay hidden in the depths of Ravenscroft Manor? And more importantly, would the cost of uncovering them be more than Arthur was prepared to pay? Stay with us as the path grows darker and the stakes rise higher in this tale of riddles, sacrifice, and secrets that refuse to remain buried. Moving forward, imagine the scene when Arthur unfolds the peculiar invitation, its edges slightly tattered, as though it had traveled far, its text written in an elegant yet unsettling hand. The message was brief but enigmatic, promising not only a challenge that would test the very limits of his intellect, but also something far more personal: the possibility of uncovering long-buried secrets. It struck a chord deep within him, an echo of the symbols left behind in his sister's diary. For a man like Arthur, whose life revolved around deciphering the undecipherable, the invitation was irresistible. But it also came with a weight he couldn't ignore. A shiver of doubt crept through his mind as he read and reread the words. If this was a genuine lead, it could change everything he thought he knew. Yet, what if it was a trap, a cruel game orchestrated by someone who had unraveled the tangled threads of his past before he did? That single question lingered as the storm outside his small, dimly lit study mirrored the storm within him. And so, against his better judgment and driven by a twisted mix of hope and dread, Arthur packed his tools of the trade, notebooks, cipher wheels, and a mind sharpened by years of solitude. The journey to Ravenscroft Manor was not just a matter of miles, but a descent into the unknown, where every step brought him closer to truths he wasn't sure he was ready to confront. Little did Arthur know This wasn't merely a test of intellect. It was a test of resolve, of morality, and of survival itself. What awaited him at the gates of Ravenscroft Manor was more than a game. It was a revelation wrapped in danger, where every riddle solved brought him closer to answers, but also closer to the abyss. The question loomed larger with every passing thought. Was he truly prepared to face what was waiting for him? Stay with us as the shadowy halls of Ravenscroft Manor come into view, and the game begins with stakes higher than anyone could have imagined. With the next phase of the journey in sight, the silhouette of Ravenscroft Manor began to emerge from the dense curtain of fog, its towering spires seeming to pierce the storm-laden sky. The weathered stone walls, darkened by years of rain and neglect, loomed like a fortress guarding secrets long forgotten. Every detail of the manor exuded an unsettling aura, from the ivy that clung hungrily to its facade to the cracked windows that seemed to watch Arthur's every move. The path leading to the entrance was narrow and uneven, flanked by ancient trees whose twisted branches reached out like skeletal hands. As Arthur approached the iron gates, their intricate, rusted design told stories of another time, a warning etched into their very frame. Beyond the gates, the manor waited, shrouded in an air of foreboding that could almost be felt, a heavy stillness broken only by the occasional distant howl of the wind. The rumors about Ravenscroft Manor had whispered through the town of Ravenshollow for decades, giving birth to tales of hidden passageways that led to nowhere and a long corridor where footsteps echoed even when no one walked. Some said the walls held the cries of those who disappeared within them, while others spoke of a single tragedy that painted the manor's history in blood and despair. Whether fueled by truth or imagination, these stories imprinted themselves on the air, making every shadow seem alive, every corner a potential hiding place for something unseen. The isolation was absolute. Once inside the gates, the world beyond faded, leaving only the manor and its chilling embrace. Thick fog rolled in with an almost deliberate pace, muffling sound and sight, reinforcing the idea that escape was not just unlikely, but impossible. The flickering of lanterns lining the grounds cast erratic, dancing light that did little to dispel the darkness. Inside, the creak of floorboards underfoot and the groan of timber beams told of a structure that lived and breathed, reacting to the movement of its visitors as if aware of their presence. This was no ordinary mansion. It was a stage set for a game where every element was designed to amplify dread and uncertainty. Within these walls, truths would be uncovered, alliances would be tested, and survival was not guaranteed. Arthur's breath hung in the air as he crossed the threshold, carrying with it the weight of the choices he had made to reach this moment. The story of Ravenscroft Manor and the game it held was about to begin, and no one who entered would leave unchanged. As the next challenge unfolds, the sound of a distorted voice crackled through unseen speakers, its tone cold and calculated. "Welcome, players," it began, each word echoing ominously through the cavernous entry hall of Ravenscroft Manor. "The rules are simple. Solve the puzzles, uncover the truth, and perhaps you will survive. Fail, and the consequences will be irreversible." The voice paused, as though savoring the tension that gripped the room. Arthur exchanged uneasy glances with the 5 others gathered around him, strangers, whose faces betrayed varying shades of dread, suspicion, and resolve. The host's instructions were clear but unnervingly vague. The group would face a series of cryptic puzzles, each more daunting than the last, designed not only to test their intellect, but also to unearth the shadows of their pasts. Each puzzle was tethered to a deeply personal secret, forcing the participants to confront truths they had long buried. Time, they were told, was not on their side. A brass clock on the wall began ticking loudly, its relentless rhythm echoing like a heartbeat, a constant reminder of the stakes. Arthur's mind raced as he processed the host's words. Failure was not an option, but the price of success seemed equally steep. The host's knowledge of their secrets hinted at a level of power and intrusion that made everyone uneasy. How did this faceless figure know so much about them? And just how dangerous were the consequences for those who could not keep up? The group's unease quickly turned into a palpable tension as the first challenge was unveiled. Laid out before them in a dimly lit room was a table filled with objects-worn books, ornate keys, and an array of cryptic symbols etched into a heavy stone tablet. Together, these items formed the first puzzle, a riddle that none of them could solve alone. The host's voice returned, faintly mocking as it instructed, "Work together. Or do not, the choice is yours, though the clock waits for no one." Forced into uneasy cooperation, the participants began to sift through the clues, their movements hurried yet hesitant. Arguments erupted over interpretations of the symbols and the meanings of the cryptic phrases scrawled across the walls in faded ink. Arthur, trying to remain calm, observed his companions, the sharp-tongued journalist whose focus seemed to waver between the puzzle and probing the others for their weaknesses, the disgraced banker whose trembling hands revealed more than he likely intended, and the quiet schoolteacher who appeared composed but somehow unsettlingly detached. Suspicion brewed beneath the surface as each person guarded their secrets while pretending to collaborate. Who could be trusted, and who might be hiding something darker than the rest? It became clear that solving the puzzles was only half the challenge. The real struggle lay in navigating the fragile alliances and looming betrayals among the group. As the group worked against the clock, the room seemed to press in around them, the flickering light casting distorted shadows that played tricks on their minds. Every creak of the floorboards and subtle shift in the air added to the growing unease. They managed to solve the first puzzle with seconds to spare, unlocking a hidden compartment in the stone tablet that revealed the next clue. Relief was short-lived, however, as the host's voice returned, this time laced with a sinister edge. "Congratulations," it sneered, "but what lies ahead will demand far more than clever minds." And steady hands. The group barely had time to catch their breath before the next challenge loomed, each of them silently aware that the game had only just begun, and that the true horror was yet to reveal itself. Moving forward, let us unravel the web of personalities drawn into this sinister game. Among the group of 6 participants, each individual brought more than just their presence to Ravenscroft Manor. They carried secrets, motives, and a past that seemed to intertwine with the ominous puzzles before them. First, there is Eleanor Grayson, a journalist whose silver tongue and sharp gaze turned every conversation into an interrogation. Known for exposing high-stakes scandals, Eleanor had made as many enemies as she had headlines. Her reason for accepting the invitation remained unclear, but her knack for uncovering buried truths placed her under constant scrutiny by the others. Her probing questions and cutting remarks only deepened the group's mistrust, as it felt like she was more interested in uncovering their weaknesses than solving the puzzles. Then there is Victor Morrow, a former banker whose fall from grace was as public as it was catastrophic. Once a trusted pillar in the financial world, Victor's name became synonymous with deception when allegations of embezzlement tarnished his career and destroyed his reputation. His nervous demeanor and trembling hands betrayed a man burdened by guilt and desperation. Whether his participation in the game was an attempt to escape his tarnished legacy or a bid for redemption remained a mystery. However, his unease and jumpy reactions made him an easy target for suspicion, especially when stakes were high and trust was scarce. Next is Margaret Dawes, the schoolteacher whose kind smile and calm demeanor belied a complexity no one could quite place. She carried herself with an air of quiet confidence, a stark contrast to the chaos surrounding her. Yet, her unsettling detachment and tendency to watch the others with silent intensity left Arthur wondering whether her unassuming nature was a front for something far darker. Margaret shared little about her past, and the few snippets she offered seemed vague, calculated even, as though she were intentionally keeping her true self hidden behind a veil of ordinary politeness. Rounding out the group were 3 additional players, each equally mysterious and suspicious in their own right. There was a young tech genius whose cocky attitude masked a vulnerability he refused to admit, a retired detective whose weary eyes hinted at battles fought long before this game, and a glamorous socialite whose charm seemed like a well-practiced act to deflect attention away from her own secrets. Each of them, in their own way, brought layers of complexity to the unfolding drama, their motives and connections to the game's host locked away behind carefully constructed facades. The dynamics between these 6 strangers were as volatile as a powder keg, each interaction threatening to ignite the tension simmering beneath the surface. Small alliances began to form, though they were as fragile as the trust they were based on. Eleanor and the tech genius appeared to bond over their shared analytical skills, though whether this partnership was genuine or merely opportunistic remained uncertain. Meanwhile, Victor gravitated towards the retired detective, perhaps seeing him as a stabilizing presence amidst the chaos. Margaret, for her part, kept largely to herself, her enigmatic aura making it impossible for anyone to discern where her loyalties lay. Arthur found himself an unwilling participant in this dance of alliances and suspicion. As he observed the group, it became clear that survival demanded more than solving puzzles. It required navigating the treacherous waters of trust and betrayal. With each passing moment, it seemed that the participants were not just playing a game, but were pieces on a chessboard, their moves orchestrated by the unseen host who seemed to know their every secret. And yet, amid the distrust and unease, one question lingered. How deeply were their fates intertwined, and what threads of their pasts bound them to the deadly game they now faced? As the next challenge unfolds, the 6 participants find themselves led into an ominous chamber deep within the manor. The room is dimly lit, with flickering candles casting eerie shadows on the walls adorned with cryptic symbols and ancient carvings. In the center, a large wooden table is strewn with strange artifacts, rusty keys, fragmented maps, and a scattering of numbered tiles. Dominating the scene is an old grandfather clock in the corner, its hands frozen at midnight. Suddenly, a distorted voice echoes from hidden speakers, cold and calculating, instructing the group to solve the puzzle before the clock strikes 12. As if on cue, the hands of the clock lurch forward, beginning a slow, steady march toward the hour, their ominous tick-tock filling the room with a sense of growing dread. The riddle is revealed in a note pinned to the wall, written in an elaborate, looping script, to move forward, assemble what was broken, for only unity repairs the past. But beware, each piece holds a truth, and not all truths are welcome. It is clear that the solution depends on the scattered numbered tiles on the table, but how they must be assembled remains a mystery. Arthur is the first to step forward, his sharp eyes scanning the room with a mix of focus and urgency. He notices a faint outline etched into the table's surface, a grid-like pattern that seems to match the shape and size of the tiles. Yet it is no simple jigsaw. The numbers appear random, and some tiles are blank, their purpose unclear. Tension builds as the participants begin offering conflicting theories. Eleanor, her voice sharp and commanding, insists that the numbers must form some kind of sequence, possibly a code. The tech genius, with his trademark swagger, counters that the arrangement is more symbolic, perhaps tied to the cryptic symbols adorning the walls. Victor stands back uncertainly, his nervous hands fidgeting with one of the blank tiles, while Margaret quietly observes, her expression unreadable. Frustration mounts as the retired detective tries to mediate, urging everyone to focus despite their growing mistrust. Arthur, however, remains calm, methodically analyzing the shapes and engravings on each tile. He begins arranging them on the table, testing different configurations while tuning out the cacophony of arguments around him. As he works, he notices that some tiles bear faint, nearly invisible indentations, letters, not numbers, engraved so delicately that they are only visible when held at a certain angle under the flickering candlelight. Encouraging the others to stop bickering, Arthur explains his theory. The tiles must form a word, not a series of numbers. Eleanor's skepticism is palpable, but with time slipping away, even she reluctantly agrees to help. Together, the participants begin identifying the hidden letters, though the atmosphere remains fraught with tension. The tech genius mutters under his breath about wasted time, while Victor's trembling hands nearly drop one of the tiles. Adding to the stress is the constant ticking of the clock, each tick reverberating like a heartbeat. Slowly, the letters start to form a word, truth. But as Arthur places the last tile, the configuration does not fit the grid perfectly. Something is missing. Margaret, who has remained silent for most of the task, finally speaks, her voice calm and deliberate. She suggests using the blank tiles to fill in the gaps, but not with letters. Instead, she argues, they must represent the spaces between truths, the unspoken or hidden parts of their lives. Though her suggestion is oddly cryptic, Arthur decides to trust her instincts. He arranges the blank tiles accordingly, and with a decisive click, the puzzle locks into place. The room falls silent just as the clock's hands reach the final stroke of 12. For a moment, relief washes over the group, but it is short-lived. A hidden panel on the wall slides open, revealing a chilling message scrawled in stark red ink. Congratulations, one truth revealed. Failure next time will demand a price. The participants exchange uneasy glances, the weight of the warning hanging heavily in the air. While they have survived this first test, the message leaves little doubt that the games to come will only grow more perilous. With this ominous thought, the group is ushered toward the next challenge, their fragile alliances now further burdened by the realization that their darkest secrets may soon be exposed. With the next phase of the journey in sight, the group is led into another part of the sprawling Ravenscroft Manor, a winding corridor lined with faded tapestries and cobwebbed chandeliers. The air feels heavier here, as if the walls themselves hold their breath, listening. Along the way, Arthur's keen eyes catch subtle details, a loose floorboard here, a peculiar mark above a door frame there. Each observation stirs a question, but no answers come easily. The group's uneasy silence is broken only by the creaking of old wood beneath their cautious steps and the faint whistle of wind seeping through hidden cracks. The corridor abruptly ends at a grand double door, its surface carved with intricate patterns of intertwined snakes and roses. Pushing it open reveals a cavernous study, dimly lit by the flicker of a solitary fireplace. Shelves crammed with leather-bound tomes loom like silent sentinels, and scattered across the room are objects both mundane and bizarre. An antique globe, a blackened candlestick, and a dusty portrait of a woman whose vacant eyes seem to follow their every move. It is here that the next set of clues is meant to reveal itself. Arthur immediately gravitates toward the portrait, noting the peculiar way its frame is slightly tilted, exposing the faintest glimmer of something metallic behind it. He nudges it aside carefully, revealing a small compartment holding a folded piece of parchment. As he reads aloud, the riddle adds another layer of complexity. Asterisk, the past whispers through forgotten faces, but not all whispers speak the truth. Asterisk, the others fan out across the room, each drawn to different objects, but suspicion quickly begins to ripple through the group as they debate what holds genuine meaning and what is merely a trap. Eleanor, ever the skeptic, examines the globe, spinning it slowly to spot any hidden markings. Victor, his nerves fraying, fixates on a locked drawer in the desk, trying to pry it open without much success. The tech genius eyes the candlestick, mumbling something about ultraviolet light, revealing hidden symbols, while Margaret lingers by the bookshelves, her fingers brushing over the spines as if searching for a familiar name. The retired detective, his movements slower but deliberate, studies the room's shadows as though they might conceal more than just darkness. As the minutes tick by, the group's tension rises. The tech genius grows impatient, dismissing the clues as distractions, while Eleanor accuses him of being too hasty, her sharp tone cutting through the room. Victor's frustration mounts as his efforts with the desk yield nothing, and Margaret's quiet demeanor seems to unnerve the others, her silence leaving them to wonder what she might be hiding. Amid the fraying nerves, Arthur maintains his focus, his mind piecing together the fragments of context and meaning. He notices something peculiar about the portrait's eyes. They reflect the light oddly, almost as if they are glass. Testing his theory, he traces the direction of their gaze to a specific book on the upper shelf. Pulling it free triggers a faint click, and a hidden drawer slides open beneath the desk Victor had been struggling with. Inside is an ornate key alongside another cryptic message. Asterisk, what unlocks is not always the truth. Choose wisely. Asterisk, yet as the group gathers to inspect the discovery, doubts cloud their progress. Eleanor voices the possibility that the key might be a red herring, planted to mislead them. The tech genius argues that they have no choice but to try it, while Margaret quietly suggests that perhaps the answer lies not in the key, but in the question itself, what truth they are truly seeking. The room feels heavier now, the fireplace casting distorted shadows that seem to mock their confusion. Arthur takes a step back, observing the unfolding scene with a measured gaze. He begins to suspect that the host is deliberately toying with them, planting clues so entwined with their fears and secrets that they can no longer discern reality from manipulation. The manor itself seems to conspire in this deception, with its endless hallways and concealed compartments feeding the growing paranoia among the group. The atmosphere thickens, and for the first time, Arthur feels the weight of the game pressing down on him, not just as a challenge to solve, but as a weapon wielded against them. With the key in hand, the group hesitates, unsure whether to trust it or abandon it altogether. The uncertainty gnaws at their fragile alliances, and the air is charged with unresolved tension and mistrust. Arthur clenches the key tightly, knowing that every choice from this point forward carries the risk of unraveling the fine line between victory and betrayal. As the next challenge unfolds, the group's fragile unity begins to splinter further under the weight of the game. The objects and riddles within the manor seem to tear at their defenses, revealing cracks that had only been faintly visible before. It begins subtly, a stray comment here, a suspicious glance there, but soon the tension erupts. Victor, who has been unnervingly quiet since the discovery of the key, finally snaps under Eleanor's relentless probing. In a heated exchange, he admits to being involved in a major embezzlement scandal, a revelation that leaves the group stunned. Eleanor, though visibly taken aback, is far from innocent herself. Arthur's sharp mind pieces together the details of a riddle from earlier, deciphering a clue that connects her to a suspicious accident involving a source she had been investigating, a detail she cannot deny. The air becomes thick with mistrust as these confessions ripple through the room, each admission fueling the tension. The participants begin to argue, their voices overlapping in a chaotic cacophony of blame and defensiveness. Even Margaret, who had remained composed and enigmatic, begins to falter. Her quiet demeanor raises suspicions, and murmurs of her potential involvement with the host begin to circulate among the group. Arthur watches it unfold, his mind working overtime to unravel not only the riddles laid out before them, but also the tangled web of lies, guilt, and fear that binds the participants together. What troubles Arthur most is a growing sense that the puzzles are not just arbitrary challenges. Each clue, each riddle, seems tailored to their individual lives, pulling threads from their pasts to weave a sinister narrative. When he comes across a puzzle that eerily mirrors the circumstances of his sister's disappearance, the realization strikes like a bolt of lightning. The host knows far more about them than anyone could have guessed. The game is no longer just a matter of survival. It has become deeply personal, a labyrinth of pain and regret designed to torment as much as to test. The group stumbles into yet another room, this one hauntingly empty save for a single chair bolted to the center of the floor. A chilling note lies placed carefully on the seat, its message short but filled with foreboding for the next failure. The implications are clear, and the room's eerie silence amplifies the dread hanging over them. The host's intentions become even more sinister, each step forward driving a wedge further between the participants. Arthur's gaze lingers on the note, his mind racing to decode its layers of meaning, while the others struggle to process what it could signify. The crumbling alliances, the erupting tempers, and the suffocating uncertainty are no longer just byproducts of the game. They are the game. With every passing moment, trust becomes as elusive as the solutions themselves, and Arthur begins to doubt whether they can make it out of Ravenscroft Manor intact. The journey forward promises only more revelations and betrayals, and Arthur knows that the truth, when it finally emerges, will come at a cost none of them are prepared to pay. With the next phase of the journey in sight, Arthur finds himself standing before a puzzle that is both eerily familiar and profoundly unsettling. The symbols etched into the ancient, weathered surface of the table before him are not just random. They are the intricate markings and ciphers he once saw on the last letter his sister left behind before she disappeared. The realization sends a chill through him, tightening his chest with a mix of fear and longing. Memories he thought he had buried begin to claw their way to the surface. He sees flashes of his sister's laughter, her determination, and the day she vanished without a trace. These images are soon replaced by darker ones, his endless search for answers, the sleepless nights spent poring over meaningless leads, and the guilt that had consumed him for years. What could he have done differently? How had he failed her? Arthur's mind races as he tries to piece together the connections between the puzzle in front of him and his sister's disappearance. The host's knowledge of his sister feels like an invasion of his most private pain, and yet he cannot ignore the possibility that this puzzle might finally provide him with the truth he has sought for so long. Torn between desperation and resolve, he dives into the task with laser focus, methodically working through each cipher and riddle as the group watches him in tense silence. Every solved clue peels back another layer of his memories, forcing him to relive the emotions he has tried so hard to suppress. But something else gnaws at Arthur's mind as he works, the sense that the host's intimate knowledge of their lives does not stop at him alone. Earlier moments and riddles had teased at aspects of the others' lives that no stranger could have known. Eleanor's accident, Victor's scandal, Margaret's unsettling composure. It all feels too deliberate, too calculated. As the fragments of the puzzle begin to take shape, Arthur's suspicions deepen. Could someone within their group be feeding the host this deeply personal information? The thought plants a seed of betrayal in his mind, a paranoia he cannot shake. Could one of them be complicit in this horrifying game? The puzzle's final solution clicks into place, and Arthur's breath catches as the answer materializes before him. It is not just a clue to their next step, but also a personal revelation, one that hints at his sister's fate in a way he is not yet ready to confront. He turns to the group, his voice steady but tinged with an edge of fear and determination. This game, it's not just about survival, it's about us, all of us. Our pasts, our secrets, everything we thought we could leave behind. He pauses, his gaze scanning each of them. I think someone here is helping the host. And if we don't figure out who, none of us are getting out of here. The room falls silent, the weight of Arthur's words pressing down on them like a heavy fog. Suspicious glances dart across the room, but Arthur's focus remains unwavering. For the first time since the game began, he feels a spark of clarity, not just about the puzzle, but about his own role in this nightmare. If finding the truth means confronting the people around him, so be it. This realization steels his resolve, marking a turning point in both the game and his personal journey. The truth, however devastating it might be, is now his only goal, and Arthur knows there is no turning back. As the next challenge unfolds, the air grows heavier with tension, and Arthur's suspicions find their mark. The fragmented clues and unsettling connections piece together into a horrifying realization. He turns to Margaret Dawes, the calm, unassuming schoolteacher who has remained disturbingly composed through every harrowing ordeal. Her mask of innocence begins to crack under the weight of Arthur's piercing gaze. It's you, isn't it? Arthur's voice cuts through the silence, steady but charged with an unrelenting demand for the truth. You're the one behind all of this. The group collectively shifts, their eyes locking onto Margaret, confusion and disbelief flooding their faces. But Margaret doesn't flinch. Instead, a sinister smile creeps across her lips, and she begins to laugh, a hollow, icy sound that chills the room. "Do you finally see it now?" she says, her tone calm yet laced with venom. "You all think you're victims in some cruel game, but every single one of you. You took something from me. You didn't know it at the time. Maybe you didn't care. But now you'll understand." Her voice grows sharper, filled with years of bottled-up rage that have festered into something far darker. She steps forward, her eyes locking onto each participant, dissecting them with a chilling precision. "Eleanor, your article destroyed my brother's career, left him with nothing. And Victor, your greed, your lies. I wonder if you even remember the people you ruined, the families you tore apart. As for you, Arthur," she pauses, her words taking on an almost mocking edge. "You're not as clever as you think. My sister, she's gone because of your arrogance. It's poetic, isn't it, that you're here, grasping for answers, when you've been part of the reason for my pain all along." The others erupt into protests, voices overlapping in a cacophony of denial and outrage. But Margaret silences them with a single raised hand, her composure now terrifying in its clarity. She turns back to Arthur, her gaze as sharp as a blade. "You think you've figured it all out, don't you? Solved your little puzzles, unraveled my secrets. But this was never meant to be your victory, Arthur. This is my game. It always has been." Arthur's mind races, every word from Margaret unraveling the fabric of everything he thought he knew. The puzzle pieces fall into place, but not in the way he hoped. Her meticulous planning, her knowledge of their lives, her ability to manipulate their fears, it all points to one inescapable truth. She had orchestrated this, every twist and turn, every moment of doubt and despair. Yet her next move shatters the fragile ground beneath his feet. Margaret steps closer to Arthur, her tone softening but losing none of its menace. "Here's the thing, Arthur. You can still walk away. I'll let you leave alive. You'll never have to solve another puzzle, never have to face another one of my trials. But there's a price. You let me finish what I started. Let me remind them, all of them, what happens when you destroy someone's life." She pauses, her offer hanging in the air like a noose. "It's a simple choice, really. Your survival or their justice. What will it be?" The group stares at Arthur, their fates tethered to his next words. His heart pounds, the weight of Margaret's ultimatum pressing down on him. The room feels suffocating as silence falls over them, broken only by the distant echo of the wind howling through the manor. Margaret's eyes bore into his, unflinching and unrelenting, as if daring him to make the choice that will define not just the game, but the man he will become. Moving forward, the atmosphere thickens, the room brimming with an almost unbearable tension as the final puzzle is revealed. A massive, intricate mechanism stands before Arthur, its gears and levers stretching high into the dimly lit chamber. Inscribed across its surface are cryptic symbols, some familiar from earlier trials, others entirely foreign, their meaning cloaked in mystery. A timer on the wall begins to tick down, the rhythmic sound echoing like a death knell in the cavernous space. The group watches in silence, their lives suspended in Arthur's hands. In the center of the machine lies the heart of the puzzle, a rotating disc engraved with a labyrinth of pathways and a glowing core that pulses with each passing second. A small plaque beneath it reads, The answers lie within, but so does the weight of your choice. One path to salvation, another to sacrifice. Margaret's distant yet probing gaze haunts Arthur as he steps closer, his every movement feeling scrutinized, manipulated even now by her orchestration. His mind races, scanning the puzzle for patterns, connections, and possibilities. He adjusts levers and aligns symbols, the clinking of metal and the low hum of the machine growing louder with each turn. But this puzzle is unlike any before. It resists simple logic, forcing him to confront something deeper. His own instincts, his morality, his doubts. He can feel the eyes of the others boring into him, a mix of hope and dread lingering in the air. The timer's relentless ticking grows faster, its rhythm pounding like a heartbeat. Arthur's hands tremble as he deciphers a sequence, causing the mechanisms to shudder and reveal a hidden compartment. Inside is a lever, split into two directions with labels that send a chill down his spine. One reads, "Release," the other, "Retribution." The implications are clear. Release offers him a way out, a chance to escape with his life intact. Retribution, however, would mean stopping Margaret, ensuring justice, but at a price that could endanger not only himself, but everyone in the room. The timer hits its final stretch, each tick now a jarring reminder that his decision must be swift. Sweat drips down his brow as he feels the immense weight of this moment. He glances back at the group, their faces a canvas of fear and desperation. Then his eyes meet Margaret's. Her calm, unyielding expression dares him to falter, to choose the easier path and leave her victorious. As the final seconds approach, Arthur takes a deep breath, centering himself amidst the chaos. With a determined resolve, he pulls the lever toward retribution. The machine roars to life, its gears grinding and spinning at a breakneck pace. Lights flicker, and a deafening hum fills the chamber. The floor shakes beneath them as the puzzle collapses in on itself, revealing its true purpose, a trap for Margaret's twisted game. She stares in shock, her composure finally breaking as the mechanisms turn against her. "What have you done?" she whispers, her voice filled with a mixture of disbelief and rage. Arthur steps back as a series of locks snap shut, sealing away her ability to continue her deadly game. The timer halts with a loud clang, the silence that follows almost deafening. But the victory is far from sweet. The aftermath leaves the group shaken, their lives irrevocably altered by the choices made within these walls. Margaret's defeat has come at a cost, her carefully laid plans exposed, but the scars of her actions etched into the souls of all involved. Arthur collapses to his knees, the weight of his decision finally crashing down on him. The manor seems to sigh, as if acknowledging the game's end, its once oppressive presence now fading into an eerie stillness. Arthur's triumph is bittersweet, a hollow victory in a game that should never have existed. Yet in this moment of quiet, as the gears of the puzzle fall silent, one thing becomes clear: he has survived, but he will never be the same. With the next phase of Arthur's journey in sight, the eerie stillness of Ravenscroft Manor lingers like a phantom, a haunting reminder of the night's horrors. Arthur emerges into the pale morning light, his steps heavy, his mind burdened with the memories of what transpired. Though he has survived, the man who entered the manor is not the same as the one who walks away. The truth about his sister's disappearance has been unearthed, a revelation that both pierces his heart and grants him a bittersweet closure. Margaret's twisted game had been her final act of vengeance, her manipulations intertwining their lives in ways none of them could have foreseen. For the other participants, the aftermath marks the beginning of a new chapter, though not one without scars. Eleanor, the sharp-tongued journalist, leaves with a newfound understanding of the toll secrets can take, her once hardened demeanor softened by the ordeal. Victor, the disgraced banker, grapples with his guilt, his survival a second chance to make amends. The remaining survivors, though few, are bound forever by the shared trauma of that fateful night, their lives inexplicably tied to the dark puzzle that nearly consumed them all. As Arthur finally reaches the edge of the manor's grounds, he pauses, feeling the weight of something in his pocket. Slowly, he retrieves a small, folded note, its edges frayed as though carried by unseen hands. The words, written in the same cryptic handwriting as the game's invitations, send a chill down his spine. Some puzzles never truly end. Be ready. He stares at it, his mind racing with possibilities. Was this the end, or merely the beginning of another game? As the sun rises, casting long shadows over Ravenscroft Manor, Arthur knows one thing with unsettling certainty. This experience has changed him forever. It has awakened parts of him he never knew existed, a resilience tempered by pain, a clarity forged in chaos. But even as he steps into the new day, he cannot shake the lingering feeling that something or someone is still watching. And so, dear viewer, the puzzle remains. Would you have had the resolve to make the choices Arthur did? What secrets might you be forced to confront in a game where every move holds the weight of life and death? The tale of the cryptic puzzle may be over for now, but its echoes continue, inviting us to reflect on the power of secrets, choices, and the dark corners of the human soul. If you found yourself drawn into this story, be sure to like this video, share your thoughts or theories in the comments below, and subscribe to join us for more tales that challenge the mind and stir the imagination. Remember, some puzzles await only the curious to come alive again. Are you ready to play?